What if I told you that every citizen in today's world isn't really free? That the money you earn, save, or even hold in your wallet was never truly yours to begin with? Somewhere along the line, something changed. A quiet shift took place, not through war, not through revolution, but through documents, policies, and silent deals made behind closed doors. A silent coup. And from that moment, citizens stopped being people in an economy and became collateral. To understand how that happened, we have to travel back in time to the mid-1900s. The world had just survived 2 world wars. Economies were destroyed, gold reserves were empty, and countries were drowning in debt. They needed a new system to rebuild global trade and finance. So in 1944, the most powerful nations gathered in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. That meeting changed everything. There they built the global financial order that still controls us today. 2 big institutions were born, the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. Their job was to stabilize economies and rebuild countries. But behind the nice words was a darker truth. These institutions weren't just managing money, they were creating a new power structure. And at the center of it all stood the US dollar. At that time, the dollar was backed by gold, meaning every paper dollar could, in theory, be exchanged for real gold. It gave the US massive influence because every other country's currency was tied to the dollar. For a few years, this system looked stable, but behind the scenes, it was already cracking. By the 1960s, the US government was spending like never before funding wars, social programs, and expansion projects. They were printing more money than they had gold to back it. Slowly, other countries began to notice. France, for example, started demanding actual gold in exchange for their dollars. And that S, when the world saw the truth, America didn't have enough gold left. And that S, when the world saw the truth, went, "End well." America didn't how summer is. When someone tots, when tease. When someone tots, someone tots dot. On so someone taught. You know, when someone tots, one taught. I'll set up. We'll set off so with well said, as intent separate as is always, as evan, as oh, as evan, the US would no longer exchange dollars for gold. The dollar, and every other global currency, was now backed by nothing. It was pure fiat money by government decree. That moment was the silent coup. Why? Because that single decision quietly shifted power forever. From that point onward, money was no longer tied to real value. It was tied to debt. Every dollar in circulation represented someone's promise to pay it back with interest. Governments issued bonds, banks created loans from thin air, and the foundation of this new money system became you, your taxes, your labor, your future. That's how citizens became collateral. The wealth of nations was now backed not by gold, but by the productivity and debt of their people. The more people borrowed, worked, and paid taxes, the stronger the illusion of stability became. As the decades passed, this system only grew stronger. In the 1970s, the petrodollar deal with oil-rich nations ensured that global oil would always be sold in US dollars, forcing every country to hold American currency. In the 1980s, banks were deregulated, credit exploded, and debt became the fuel of the modern world. By the 1990s and early 2000s, the system reached a dangerous level of complexity: derivatives, mortgage-backed securities, and financial products that most people didn't even understand. Then came 2008. The house of cards finally collapsed. Decades of speculation and leverage came crashing down. Millions lost their homes, jobs, and savings. But instead of punishing the system, governments decided to save it. They printed trillions in new money to bail out the same banks that caused the crisis. The rich were rescued. The poor were left behind. And from that moment, the silent coup became permanent. Governments justified it as saving the economy, but what they really saved was the debt-based machine. Central banks around the world began printing money at record levels, not for the people, but for the markets. Every new crisis became an excuse to create more currency, more loans, and more control. Look at the world today. Global debt has crossed $350 trillion. Every major nation owes more than it can ever repay. In the United States alone, public debt is over $35 trillion. That means every single American man, woman, and child is carrying a debt burden of over $100,000, whether they realize it or not. And yet the system keeps running, because the debt isn't meant to be repaid. It's meant to keep people dependent. Inflation quietly eats away your savings. Taxes take a slice of every paycheck. and banks profit from every transaction, loan, and crisis. Even digital money, which many thought would be the escape, is now being pulled into the same web. Central bank digital currencies are being tested around the world. They promise speed and security, but they come with strings attached, full traceability, and total control. Every transaction, every purchase, every saving could soon be monitored, limited, or even reversed.
Imagine a future where your money can expire or be blocked for policy reasons.
That's not a theory, it's already being tested.
And just like that, the same system that turned citizens into collateral is turning data and freedom into new forms of currency. The control is no longer just financial, it's digital. But history has shown what happens when money loses its anchor to real value. From Weimar Germany to Venezuela, from Argentina to Lebanon, when trust breaks, societies collapse. Prices skyrocket, currencies fail, and citizens are left with paper that buys nothing. Governments respond the same way every time. Print more money, offer new programs, promise reforms. But none of these fixes solve the real issue that our money no longer represents real production or real wealth. It only represents promises built on more promises. And in that endless cycle, we, the citizens, are the guarantee. Our time, labor, and future taxes are the collateral holding up a system designed to keep us working harder for money that buys less every year. So what can we learn from this? Money today is not a measure of value, it's a measure of control. The more money they create, the less yours is worth. Debt is the real engine of modern economics. It keeps nations, companies, and individuals locked in a loop of dependence. The illusion of prosperity hides the truth of ownership. The system doesn't want you to be free. It wants you to keep spending, borrowing, and believing. Once you understand that real wealth isn't in printed paper or digits on a screen, but in tangible assets, knowledge, and independence, you start to see through the illusion. This silent coup was never about taking power overnight. It was about slowly reshaping how we think about money, value, and freedom. And even though the system still stands, cracks are beginning to show. People are waking up. They're questioning the idea of value and looking for ways to break free from the cycle. The question now is, will you? Will you keep trading your time for something that's losing value every day? Or will you start building real wealth that no central bank can print? If this story opened your eyes, subscribe and share this video. Because understanding the system is the first step toward taking back control before the next silent coup resets the game again.